Every year I love baking German Christmas cookies. I have a set of favorite ones that I'm gonna be baking with you today, or I hope that you're gonna be baking with me. And the first thing I do is I flip through this, granted not very pretty looking red binder with my collection of Christmas cookie recipes. And the first recipe I'm going to be making is these classic cinnamon stars that are nut-based, and we absolutely love them. Part of my ritual is that I play, as my husband calls it, cheesy Christmas music, but it really gets me into the holiday cheer. And it's not completely unheard of that there is a small glass of bubbly somewhere in the kitchen to add to the festivity. The first thing I'm going to do is for the cinnamon star cookies to take hazelnuts, sometimes they're called filberts, and grind them into a fine meal. If you don't have hazelnuts or you can't find them, you can also use almonds. We just love hazelnuts, so that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to whip up some egg whites and add the powdered sugar to it. I will save the egg whites for another recipe. There's a lot of cookie recipes where you can use just the egg yolk. And I should have thought about this earlier, but so I will save the egg yolks in a separate jar. And I will keep those in the refrigerator until I'm ready to use them. It's pretty stiff, and I'm going to add powdered sugar to it. Then I will add about 1.5 tablespoons or so of cinnamon powder. You can never go wrong with cinnamon. And my ground nuts. Mix it all up. Now this dough needs to sit in the refrigerator until it's really cold and hardened up a little bit, and we'll put that on some plastic wrap. While I'm already in the kitchen, I am also preparing my rum raisins that I usually use for my German Stollen. It's a big, almost like a yeast sweet bread for Christmas. And again, I have a video and a recipe for you, so I'm gonna start those rum raisins so that they can soak for a few days before I start baking the Stollen. I will set that aside and let that sit for a few days. After 2 hours or overnight, I take my dough for the cinnamon stars out of the refrigerator, and now the goal is to roll it out and cut out cinnamon stars. To make it easier, I often use a little bit of powdered sugar on the cookie cutter to keep the dough from sticking to it. And you can also sometimes just use some cold water to rinse the cookie cutter. For the meringue glaze, I spread a little bit on each cookie, and then I use the back of a spoon, you can also use a pastry brush, to evenly spread the glaze on top of each star. And if you're really particular, you can even use a toothpick to push the glaze all the way into the tips of the star. Bake them at 275 degrees for about 15 or 20 minutes. You want to make sure that the glaze doesn't get brown, it stays white, and I transfer them to a cooling rack. My next recipe is vanilla crescents, which is one of those really classic German Christmas cookies. Well, they look like crescents. So here's how I'm going to make them. I'm adding soft butter to a bowl. Then I'm adding sugar. Now I'm going to cream those up. I'm adding some vanilla powder to it. You can also use a vanilla bean and cut it in half and scrape out the mark of the vanilla bean. Whip that up again. I'm adding flour, almond flour, and mix everything up. And now I'll cover it in foil and let it sit in the refrigerator for about an hour until the dough kind of stiffens up a little bit. I unwrap the roll and cut it in small pieces pretty evenly, and then I roll them into smaller logs and form these little crescents. Just setting them aside. Some people like to make them even, and I like to have a thicker middle and thinner ends. And the next recipe is a handed down recipe from my mom's family for just regular cutout cookies, but it's such a good recipe and it's very basic. So first I already measured out the butter. Then I need 2 egg yolks. I'm adding flour. Sugar. Combine these ingredients. Here you can see that the dough almost wants to come together, but not quite. So sometimes you can just take your hands and press it into a dough. And from this, we will cut out cookies. First I'll use just a little bit of the dough, not all of it. And I'll put this in the refrigerator for now. using a little bit more flour to roll out the dough just a little bit thinner. You always want to use as little flour as possible because otherwise these cookies get very dry. And then I use whatever cookie cutters I have, Christmas themed trees, stars, bells, and place them on my silicone mat lined baking tray. I bake them at about 350 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes until they're just about golden brown. And then I transfer them to a cooling rack. And when they're cooled, I like to add them to a pretty cookie tin that I put a piece of paper towel in, and that way they will keep for a long time. For the vanilla crescents, I use my own vanilla sugar, and once the crescents are baked and while they're still warm, I dip them and roll them in the vanilla powdered sugar to give them that nice white coating. Once they're completely cooled off, I also add them to a pretty Christmas cookie tin. I have more holiday recipes right here. Thank you so much for watching me and joining me in my Christmas baking kitchen. Happy holidays, and I'll see you in the next video.